The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the program host and do not necessarily reflect or represent the views and opinions held by TCN TV Network Incorporated. Due to the social nature of this broadcasting channel, videos may contain content copyrighted by another entity or person. The TCN TV Network claims no rights to the said content. TCN TV Network cannot be held accountable for the copyrighted content. TCN TV Network is a messenger and sharer of information and strives to verify but cannot warrant the accuracy of copyrights or completeness of the information on this program.
Hey, welcome to the Elephant Room.
Hello, everybody.
That's Sheldon Holder.
Hello. Yeah, that's me, Sheldon Holder.
I thought he would have said, and this is L.A. Wade. It didn't go the way I thought it was going to
It's
go.
all about me. It's all about me today. It's about me.
This is Sheldon, and this is where it's at. Okay.
Okay, and this is L.A. Wade. That's what I was supposed to do.
Yeah, but he didn't know, so
Yeah,
I
she
put
caught
that
me
on
off
him
guard.
without him knowing.
It's okay, though.
It's all good. Anyway, today's topic is one that was inspired by last week's breakdown of the world, because somebody a black woman is going to be playing Ariel, the Little Mermaid. And this little fictional character, who apparently is Danish, is not to be played by a black woman. So this is going to be fascinating. However, that being said, we ended up having a really engaging conversation around the ways in which colorism impacts our community. And so I want to start with this video of Oprah defining colorism and jumping right into some historical context that will be the context of this conversation. Can you do that for us, Selena?
Colorism, it's called. It is the light skin, dark skin prejudice where people of color discriminate against each other within their own race. Now, you may have seen the documentary called Dark Girls. Did you all see that? Very good. Bill Duke, a few months ago on OWN. And it generated one of the biggest online discussions we've ever had. And it really boils down to the belief that the lighter your skin tone, the prettier you are, the smarter you are.
More valuable and worthy you are.
True. And the easier you have it, that's the perception. So colorism has been around for a very long time. Where did it come from?
Well, its roots are really go all the way back to slavery, where the slave women were bred.
The roots of this light versus dark inequality stem all the way back to the days of slavery, when lighter-skinned slaves, often the mixed children of white slave owners, aka the product of rape, aka you're not slick Thomas Jefferson, were given domestic work as opposed to the physical labor of darker slaves, thus landing higher on the skin tone hierarchy because of their proximity to whiteness. This separation was enacted based on the slave traders' false beliefs that darker-skinned people were better suited for hard labor, whereas lighter-skinned blacks were thought to be better suited for intelligent and domestic tasks. Don't get it twisted though, whether in the house or in the field, they were still enslaved, so it was definitely not a choice, no matter what your weird cousin on Facebook says. Out of the house slave versus field slave mentality came white supremacist stereotypes that framed light-skinned people as the good blacks and darker-skinned people as lazy, unintelligent, unattractive, undesirable, criminal, aggressive, and just all around bad. Now, while the skin tone hierarchy known as colorism is a byproduct of white supremacy, it's not just a white thing. Stereotypical figures like the angry black woman and sassy black friend are unfortunately also present in black-made media. In the recent past, there have been numerous examples of black people in the media perpetuating the idea that lighter is better. The popular 90s sitcom Martin, as brilliant as it was, is a shining example of this problem. Light-skinned Gina was positioned as attractive, intelligent, and funny versus her dark-skinned friend Pam, who despite being bangin', was often coded as unattractive and the butt of many of Martin's jokes. And what we will not do is stand for anyone coming for sitcom legend Tashina Arnold. And there's been even more recent instances of this. Remember that time Kanye West held a Yeezy casting asking for multiracial women only? Or when the casting call for the movie Straight Outta Compton described A girls as the hottest of the hottest with real hair, and D girls as, and I quote, African American girls, poor, not in good shape, medium to dark skin tone. Yikes, it be your own people. Or remember when rapper Kodak Black, himself a dark-skinned black man, said that he doesn't date women who share his complexion because they're too gutter? Come on now, Kodak, black is in your name. These examples point to the fact that many black people, even those with the power to create change within their own industries, sometimes internalize the very colorist stereotypes that have kept them down. Now, the media doesn't necessarily cause colorism, but it reinforces it in ways that have real-world implications. Colorism has much wider ramifications than just who we see on our movie screens or on the cover of magazines. So prepare.
I get angry. You know, this topic, I was hoping that this topic wouldn't actually evoke the anger inside of me, but I'm feeling the anger. Can I share?
Tell me why you feel angry.
I feel angry because I feel the pain of it. I've had my own experiences of it. And
How do those experiences manifest for you?
I think this is a psychotherapy session. Okay, so how does it manifest for me? Meaning, where do I feel it?
No, how has it happened in your real life where you've been like,
You know when I
that's
feel it?
colorism.
You know what? When whoever that wonderful lady was on the video was talking about Martin and the pinning of light-skinned Gina versus Tashina Arnold's Pam character. I relate to Pam. I know I'm lighter skinned, but I feel like I've experienced more of a darker skinned experience, and I'm not sure why. But that's what I feel like my experience has been.
Could that be because you've spent time around a lot of people who are lighter than you?
Well, growing up I grew up in Mississauga, which is a suburb in Toronto, and it was very pristinely white at the time. And there may have been about 3 black people in my school.
Okay.
And they were darker than me. However, I saw how they were treated, and I have a very large capacity for empathy, and it broke my heart because I could see the pain in them, and I recognized how I was treated somewhat differently, to the extent of saying things like, well, at least you're not as dark as them.
Oh, really?
So when I've experienced that, I recognize that my darker brothers and sisters are treated disproportionately harsher than I would have been experienced. But then, yes, I also have a lot of people on the lighter skin area, especially my sister, who looks practically Egyptian or white, Portuguese. She's very, very light. So, and I remember her, I'm sorry, I love you, Carla, but she used to tell me that I was going to have an ugly baby and she was going to have a beautiful baby.
Okay.
But I ended up having 2 beautiful babies, one darker, one lighter.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it comes up for me, and mostly because to answer your question, it shows up for me at work, or when I'm around lighter skinned people who are playing the identity politics, where they know how to be demure and they don't share how they feel openly. And if I am sharing how I feel openly, I may be seen as the most
The troublesome black woman.
black girl, the angry black woman, less intelligent, can't control herself, those kind of things, which maybe those are true, but I don't like it in juxtaposition to whiteness, which is essentially what that behavior kind of
feels like to you.
Feels like for me, yeah.
Okay.
And what about you?
Oh, well, I'm really impervious to those experiences. My life, I've just walked through life, like,
Perfectly.
Perfectly with no problems.
Wow, I've
You know what
heard
I mean?
people say that. It's called denial.
I wish it was true, but as you can tell, of the darker persuasion of African, of black, and so my experiences have been. I grew up in the Caribbean, where colorism is almost like an illness. It's a habitual thing, and it's like an addiction for people. So that from the time I walk in a place, the first thing people will identify is the fact that I'm darker than everybody else by making some kind of joke, of
Right.
trying to make me the butt of some kind of joke. So I've been called gollywog, midnight, shoe polish. I kind of repress these memories. I have them somewhere far in the back of my head, so I can't remember. But probably pretty much every derogatory name that could be used to this describe a black person, black cake. Like,
I love a black cake.
People
You see?
people come up with all kinds of names. Sometimes I have to laugh too, but still hurts inside. But yeah, people come up with all kinds of names to describe.
Yeah. It's this perpetuation of light skin, dark skin, and the division of labor that the video was talking about, with the lighter persuasion being inside the house and the darker persuasion being outside of the
A very good
house.
example of that. Is it okay if I give an
Of
example?
course you can. And then we'll go to break.
Okay, so I used to work at the Royal Bank of Canada, but in Trinidad and Tobago. And what used to happen to me is that I worked in corporate technology, and but when I go in the bank to do a transaction at the teller, which was very rare, the teller would always say, so when they looked at my account number and they realized that my account number was a staff account number,
Oh.
they'd be like, so you work security? And I'd be like, no. And every single time I go to the teller, so you work in security? I'm like, no. Because people would always assume that in the Caribbean there's like a caste that colorism creates, that says that the lighter you are, even though you're black, or a lot of the people are black, even though you're black, the darker you are is the more menial task that you're expected to perform. It's the lower class person that you are. It's the person who lives in the ghetto is the darker black person. It's not always played out in reality, but in people's assumptions, it's played out that way. So people always used to assume that I was not like like actually working in the bank as a bank employee. They would assume that I was a security officer, which is a bank employee still, but just on the lower rung of things. You know?
Right. Well, let's take a break, and I want to ask you when you come back, how did that make you feel?
Okay.
Okay.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. May your dreams all come true. Happy birthday to you.
We refuse to promote, report on anything negative in the community.
But then in the Caribbean, class and race, I think, are often intertwined. So even though the Caribbean is, for the most part, an African majority society, and you see that throughout the region for the most part, when you look at the distribution of economic resources and power in the Caribbean, that doesn't necessarily follow through. So it makes you ask the question whether there are other factors at play in terms of how wealth is distributed or how opportunities are distributed and how those constructs come together. In Jamaica, for example.
Okay. In Jamaica, for example.
Yeah, in Jamaica. Colorism is big in Jamaica, man.
Yeah.
Weren't you singing the song for me the other day?
Them a bleach. Them a bleach out them skin. Them a bleach. They look like
What
a
about
brownie?
browning? Right.
Now you?
But they have the one for all black women too.
What's that?
They have the song. Come on, do we need a call-in number so people can set Sheldon Holder, Mr. Trinidad straight? It's just like Browning, except it's the same artist, and he talks. Come on, you're the music man.
I don't remember. I'm sorry.
Oh my God, Selena, if you can ever find Browning or and Enough Love for Black. Yeah, that's the one song. And most of all, I love me Browning. Right. So I think, I don't know how that song came out, and I think maybe there was some feedback about the darker skinned women not having a song. So there was Enough Love for All Black Women that came out. That was the first line. I'm not singing it for you because I'm not a part of AFO.
Oh, I have the cold. That's why my voice isn't so good right now. Just full disclosure. Just
He really is a singer, and he's very good.
I'm really a singer.
But he's sick right now. It's all good. But so in that video about racism and classism in the Caribbean, how that is how they tend to take up colorism there. Because I've heard lots of people from the Caribbean talking about colorism not necessarily being a thing, although I think that that's their blind spot, maybe, the people that are saying that.
Oh, yeah, well, you know, like, there's a myth in Trinidad that Trinidad is a rainbow country, and that all races come together as one and whatnot, and there are parts of it that it is true. Races do come together as one. We have Indian, we have Syrian, we have white people, Chinese people. Yes, we are all living together, but we do make sure that we live separately.
Oh, really?
So
how do you make sure of that?
well, a certain portion of the jobs are really afforded to people of a certain either, like you said, class, so that if you're educated, depending on your background, then you may have certain jobs available to you. If you're lighter in complexion, then those jobs will become even more available to you. And so when you go through like the important sectors, petroleum, insurance, banking, when you walk into these buildings, you will see that a lot of light-skinned people, white people, hold these jobs, and then after that, everybody can get the rest. You know, that's how the population is divided.
So education and class, the socioeconomic status plays a role in one's trajectory also then.
Yes, totally. Like it may seem to be by accident. You wonder, but okay, so the most prestigious schools, how come like the most fair-skinned people go to that school? Like, how is it that they manage to because the selection process, which is called the common entrance,
Right.
is supposed to be selecting people based on merit. But then when you look at the school population, you realize, so what? No white people don't pass for junior sec,
Right.
which is like the more, how to say, common school that people go to. No, they don't. And part of it is because they are zoned. Certain schools that are prestigious are actually closer to the rich area. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
it makes me think about the classism being the colorism, because their class is directly correlated with the color of their skin, and the only thing that trumps that is when they have a higher socioeconomic status.
yeah. So it is very much like that, because you'll see, like, even if you look at Caribbean media, when you look at Caribbean media, the complexion of the people that they display, it starts at brown.
Am I considered brown?
You could pass a little push.
I don't even know what that means.
It means that, I guess maybe the scale of color in terms of acceptability may start around your skin tone.
So, do I match the paper bag? You know about the paper bag? Paper bag test? It was more in the States, the paper bag test, right? Was that in the Caribbean?
I heard people refer to the paper bag test in the Caribbean, but I don't think it has been really prevalent. I think what really works in the Caribbean is if you're classified, well, at least in Trinidad, because I don't know about the whole Caribbean, but in Trinidad, if you're classified as red, then
you're light. You're light
yeah,
skin.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. The idea of colorism and the ideas of self-love versus self-hate, and how much of it we've internalized, and how we treat one another in the Caribbean as a result of that. There's a lot of name calling that goes on.
Yes, name calling amongst all of our brethren and sistren.
And I think that's a big elephant in the room, because attached to those name calling is hurt.
Yeah. So some people, if you tell them that they're red,
They get offended?
they would get offended. Some people might look at it as a status thing. If you tell them they're red, they look at it as a status thing. Some people, if you tell them red, it could be attached to a bad memory. It could be attached to a memory of never completely belonging.
Belonging.
Especially if you grew up around maybe likely like more dark-skinned people.
Right.
Dark-skinned people may have, how to say, excluded you or ostracized you because they see you as having light-skin privilege.
Right.
Being black, but being light-skinned, and your trajectory being one that would lead you,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, my girlfriend grew up in a Trinidadian family. She's dark skinned, her sister was light skinned. And I know that the light skinned daughter got a lot of the love. In fact, one story she told me is that a lady came to see the mother and she met my friend instead of the older daughter. And she said, "I thought you said you had a pretty daughter." And she said, "Oh yeah, she's not here right now."
Oh, really?
Yeah. Right? And so, and didn't miss a beat, you know. Like she didn't realize, or it didn't seem that she even realized that the young daughter was right there. She's darker skinned, and she right in her face referenced the other daughter to be the pretty daughter and completely dismissed the experience of my friend. And for me, I don't understand how a child is to grow up and feel good about themselves. Where does that self-love generate from?
If you're constantly being attacked like that.
Yeah.
Well, you know.
And by your own family. It's a betrayal.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I thankfully my family wasn't like that. But definitely I could say like my village, my neighborhood was like that. So growing up for me, it was very hard for me to like find my self-worth. I actually had to go to like the extreme level of the other side of being quite like full of myself to kind of find my worth. I had to.
So you were bossy.
Yeah, I was like very much like the class clown, always making jokes, always being the entertainer, trying to always push myself to be like well liked by people, so that I wouldn't feel the pressure of the name calling and whatnot.
But then, so you're a Trinidadian man who eventually comes here and is having not the same experiences in Trinidad, I'm assuming. Would that be accurate?
No, I don't really think I have the same experiences. You know, like.
So, because the pain that you were talking about or referencing before, was that mostly felt in Trinidad or was it mostly felt here in Canada?
It was mostly felt in Trinidad. You know, those were my formative years, and I also, apart from them being my formative years, there were also the years when I also had time to develop ideology and philosophy that would counteract that pain.
Is it from reading? Where did you get it from?
Well, some of it is from reading, you know, reading like biographies of Malcolm X, reading biographies of Martin Luther King, listening to music that would help me to find a sense of pride in myself for being black. And of course, it doesn't erase all the self-hate that may have been built up over the years of being persecuted for being dark-skinned.
Right.
But it did start me along the trajectory to trying to counteract that and to find security in blackness, safeness in blackness.
That sounds like a dream.
Yeah, well,
Security and safety in blackness.
part of it is a dream, and part of it is a work in progress. Actually on the ground, working every day to reaffirm myself as being proud in my skin.
Yeah. Like you said, these things happen to you during your formative years. And so our audience who have young children, you know, you hear a lot of women, I've seen it on social media where they're talking about their children like, oh, thank God they're light skinned.
Yeah, of
right?
course.
Oh, the light skinned women are saying, oh, thank God they're on my side.
I too have witnessed that. Like, I used to wear a T-shirt said, like I said, I used to go to the other side of the spectrum to reinforce my sense of pride. I always used to wear this T-shirt that said, "I am God's work of art."
Oh my! I mean, that's not bad. That's a great thing.
Yeah, but my friends.
Did you really believe it?
Yeah, I did believe it. You know, I did believe it, at least in part. I did believe it, and I was working towards embracing it like totally. But my friend's mother and my close friend's mother used to look at me and say, "No, you're not." Anytime I wear that T-shirt, she get a conversation. She'd be
Well,
like,
it sounds.
"No, you're not."
Yeah, no, you're not.
And this would be like a fair-skinned black woman telling me, "No, you're not God's work of art." And why she would say I'm not
Wow,
God's
she would
God's
tell you
work
that.
Yeah, she'd tell me I'm not God's work of art because I'm dark-skinned.
Well, you know.
And she'd be saying that with laughing, with a smile. It was a joke. It wasn't, and I'm sure if you confront her on that issue, in her eyes, it was not meant to do me any harm at all.
Yeah, they really, the Caribbean really misses where they are injuring each other in terms of interrelations. And one person who was deeply impacted by that was reggae artist Spice, who went to an extreme to put forth a video that we'll watch on our way to break. And then we'll come back and we'll tease apart some of the things that come up in that video.
You can post and say what you think about it, talk about the show, share the show with your friends.
Let us know what you think.
Cause society say brown girls prettier. Me love the way me look, me love me pretty black skin. Respect you to me strong melanin. Proud of me color, love the skin that I'm in. Born racism, demolish colorism. But the things when me a go say, you might not even love me back. I get hate from my own race, yes, that's a fact. Cause the same black people, them say I'm too black. And if you bleach out your skin, them same one come a chat. Well, since you say that I'm too black for you, I please you, do I look how you want me to? Now I'm gonna see if you're gonna say I'm too brown for you. Or do I look pretty to you? Black people hypocrisy. Leave the girls them with low self-esteem. Who no go on like say you are fi brown fi pretty. Fuck the whole of them dirty iniquity. This a black people hypocrisy. Leave the girls them with low self-esteem. I'm black and beautiful, I know I'm pretty. Fuck the whole of them dirty iniquity. Them say me black till me shine, till me look dirty. And it's the only line in life that...
Are you retiring smart? Make your home's equity work for you. With your home's equity and our 30 years of experience, the Retire Smart Properties team can help you achieve the quality of life you've always wanted. Our services are 360 degrees. We'll give you advice, take care of staging and selling, and help you find the perfect home and community to transition to. It's time to enjoy the retirement lifestyle you deserve. Visit our website today to learn how you can use your home to retire comfortably. The Retire Smart Properties team, powered by RE/MAX West.
You're crazy? The man said that Spice looked more beautiful when she looked like Beyonce. More like Beyonce.
Yeah,
with the blonde hair, the wig.
She looked more successful. She looked like she'd be more successful. Yeah. But, you know, like on a serious note. Of course I'm joking. Right? But on a serious note, when you look at the way Caribbean society is cast, you will see that in many cases, people who are lighter in complexion are actually the people who are pushed to the front to be more successful. And not only do we see it in Caribbean society, but we can also see it in terms of like entertainment and that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
If you can always see it in terms of politics as well. When you see that. Very seldom do you see a politician rise through the ranks who is not black but of fair complexion. Mm-hmm. And this is not meant to like divide people who have of darker complexion against people who have lighter complexion. This is really a conversation that is based on attempting to like break those chains, those mental chains, because like I said earlier on, I really believe that, you know, black people have pride and black people love each other. Yes, they do. But we have to break those colonial chains. And some colonial chains that we have are there not because we want them, but because old habits are hard to break. And so that's my feeling about the conversation today.
Yeah, but some people feel like they can't talk about what's troubling them. Like just last week we were having a conversation with a light-skinned man, a dark-skinned man, a white and Indian woman, and, you know, the light-skinned man felt a lot of pain because, like you were talking about, not feeling like he belonged any one place, and that his experiences have not been easy either. And so it's very important not to do this team light-skin, team dark-skin thing, because we are all having a colonized experience. And are there privileges to being lighter? Absolutely. Does it mean that your life is perfect? Absolutely not. And when you are in the skin you're in and you feel helpless, you're willing to try and do anything depending on how severe that pain is for you. And so there's this epidemic around skin bleaching that takes place.
But there's something that you just kind of touched on.
Tell me.
That's very interesting to me. And I look at it from the perspective of me making music. As a dark-skinned man making music in this world.
Right.
Yeah, I make the music that's true to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I also make music in a way trying to cross color lines. And while we're coming up on this conversation, I started to think to myself that maybe I do in some ways also attempt to lighten my music.
Oh. How? Tell me that one.
By incorporating genres.
Okay, so it's more palatable.
So it's more palatable. Like this idea of making music so that it would cross over. We use the term crossover.
Yeah, we do.
But what does crossover mean?
What are we crossing over?
Right?
What line are we crossing over?
We're trying to make music that crosses over into markets where it becomes more acceptable to whom?
To whom?
The question is white people, all right, who actually in North America constitute a larger portion of the music consuming public.
Right.
So our as artists, our idea of wanting to cross over actually involves trying to maintain a benchmark of whiteness as well.
And that's why people would do things like skin
I mean, I could be
bleaching.
wrong, but I'm just saying I had this thought,
Mm-hmm.
and I just tried to look at it critically, and that's what I came up with.
No, I think you're 100% right. We're all always negotiating and navigating how we are going to move forward across the line. It's again, I can't wait to do my PhD because the theory keeps coming up. There is a proximity between where you are and where you think you need to go. And we are constantly checking what our symbolic lists are saying. And one thing that we can't do sometimes is with our skin color, we can't change that. But some people go to extremes to get that done. Lena, can you play the video that just describes what that's all about? That would be great.
Is a growing phenomenon around the world, and it's becoming a bigger and bigger business. It's no longer just a cream that your grandma will make up for you out of something that you don't know what's in it, but now it's a multi-billion-dollar business, and all the biggest cosmetics companies sell products that are supposed to lighten your skin.
What's also terrifying is that we've yet to see a product that makes you look lighter and look good and human, and that people are willing to walk around looking like aliens, like some ghastly creature from a Steven Spielberg movie, and that is, they prefer that over their God-given color.
You could see it's unnatural. So, I mean, you take yourself out of the run-ins as a dark-skinned person and a light-skinned person when you do that, you in a different bracket. That's something else. That's like those little skin cats. You ever see those cats with the skin, ain't no hair on them, they just skin, like a Shar-Pei kitten? That's how the woman look. You don't want that. I won't even strike that as light skin. That's too far.
He said that's too far.
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, when you look at it, right, I'm looking at the woman who's talking about the bleaching cream and whatnot, and while she's talking, I can actually see, it seems to me, at least from looking at it, that her foundation on her face is actually a few shades lighter than her actual complexion. So I'm not accusing, I'm just saying, looking at it critically, this idea of colorism and of constantly evaluating our skin tone could even be happening subconscious to us when we're sitting down in front of the mirror, putting on makeup, or when we're dressing, or when we're doing what is the benchmark that we're trying to get close to? Is it a benchmark that reaffirms who we are, our identity, or is it a benchmark that pushes us closer to whiteness?
I also find that a lot of women, like the woman that you're talking about, I noticed that her hair is, a little softer curls, not as coarse. And when women that have that type of hair or the European features, when they talk about this topic, it's not that they don't relate to it. I believe that they have their own experience of colorism. But for some reason, for people, light skin or dark skin, that represent the African features, that represent the coarser, kinkier hair, they are having a very, very different experience than those that have softer hair. And I think that we gloss over it. And we don't, and the people who seem to talk about it are the ones that are lighter, the ones that do have the softer hair, the ones that have the European features. And they're speaking about their pain without really understanding the experience of those who are darker, who have coarser hair.
Who are looking on at them talking.
Yes.
And feeling like, still feeling misrepresented in a certain way.
Absolutely, because
or
those who
not
can,
represented in a certain way.
Right, and if you notice, like darker skinned people, even in movies and things like that, they don't have a voice. They don't really get a chance to speak on camera. They're seen but not heard, and sometimes they're just in the background. I find that to be problematic.
I was looking at, just to veer off just ever so slightly, I was
Sure.
looking at a video that was talking about colorism in India. And how in like Bollywood and stuff like that, you would never really see a person of dark complexion rise to be a star
Right.
in Bollywood. And how India actually is like the mecca of skin bleaching in terms of
Wow.
how high the sales of these lightening products are in India. People, the whole thing sell off.
Yeah, this idea of lighter is better has definitely permeated our globe, and it's throughout the world. And even the idea of European features. Now, you're a very attractive man, but only after doing this show am I wondering, is it because do you have the golden ratio, or do you have European features that make me think that European features are attractive and therefore you're an attractive man?
Well, for me, all my life, people have told me. I mean, we're in a different time and people are a little bit more aware now, so people tend to say it less, but it still does come up where people say, you're dark, but your skin is smooth. Or they'll say, you're dark, but you have fine features, you have a narrow nose. Like people still do make those comments. So you're right. You know, there are these European standards of beauty that are applied to people, and if you match some of those criteria, well, then you can get a pass. But then in other times, if you don't, you can be discriminated against. You know, and it makes me wonder. You know, like even like just moving through public, using government services, you know, that kind of thing. What's the perception? How am I being treated? It's sometimes I may assume that somebody's treating me, in a way that's discriminatory when they might be having a bad day. You know, it kind of foils my movements at times.
Right.
If I become too focused on a feeling of feeling possibly rejected, you know, that way, you know.
Yeah, so we're going to look at the cultural context because all of these things are kind of culminating into how we understand ourselves culturally. And so let's go to break because it's that time, and we'll come back and we'll try to bring all of this together for you.
With so many newspapers within the community, it's sometimes hard to tell what separates us from the rest. Most of the time, they all brag about the same thing. You know, the large circulations, tons of online views, and it can go on and on. But what really separates the Toronto Caribbean newspaper apart from everybody else? Well, it's simple. Our service. No, seriously. Hi, I'm Grant Browning, founder and CEO of the Toronto Caribbean newspaper. I have over 20 years of branding and marketing experience, and I've worked with countless companies and corporations to do one thing, and that is to raise their profits with their brand. With over 40 years of combined experience in branding and marketing, our amazing staff is fully prepared to sit down and figure out exactly what you need to stand out from your competitors.
The reason why you don't see that anymore is because
the ad is too powerful, bring too much people.
So what are you waiting for? Give us a call today. We'll be happy to help.
Hello everyone, my name is Jermaine Chambers, and I'm very excited to tell you about the newest political and current affairs program coming here to Brampton. It's called On Point.
The first step of true reconciliation is learning more about one another.
Join us on Tuesdays from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. as we discuss all the issues.
I will never forget the trust you put in me.
Municipal, provincial, federal, and any issue of national importance we will talk about on Point. So do join us.
At Benjamin Law, we understand the real cost of personal injuries. As the victim of an accident, you may be the one who's physically hurt, but your main concern is that your family are the ones who will pay the price. Benjamin Law will be there for you, helping, supporting, and working tirelessly to resolve your personal injury case. Call 1-855-899-4878 or visit benjaminlaw.ca and let our family of lawyers help your family.
Cheers to more light-skinned kids. Cheers to more light-skinned kids. Really, cheers to more light-skinned kids. Really know. Cheers to our race. Cheers to more light-skinned kids. Cheers to more light-skinned kids. Really, cheers to more light-skinned kids. Really know. Cheers to our race.
Cheers to more light-skinned kids.
You know, I would think that they should be saying cheers to more kids. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, but, and even in that little clip there, I mean, it's his Instagram. He can share whatever he wants to share. But you remember that feeling that I was talking about at the beginning of the show? Ooh, can we just do a whole show about black women and then seeing black men with white women and black men seeing black women with white men? I mean, this happens and people can love and be with whoever they want to be with. But at the end of the day, there is something historical there. There is something personal there. And we do not talk about that elephant as much as we maybe should. We don't tease it apart, right? We do not tease it apart. And to see him, whoever that person was, in the picture on the side,
making that statement. It's a slap
well, the
in the
cheering up to more light-skinned kids was one thing, but then the other picture was really bothering me too.
I didn't notice that picture.
Yeah, it's as a woman, I noticed that he's got the white woman beside him. They're on the beach. She just gave birth. Her stomach's ripped. Oh, look at it. She's ripped. Look how small the baby is. So it's not like she's had some time to do the work, but clearly she's done the work. And he's just so happy because he's got the Barbie doll next to him,
Okay.
and he's holding his light-skinned kid. And clearly they want to have more of them. So that irks me. It irks me. And honestly, I look to black men to make me feel better about it. I do. Can you make me feel better about that?
I don't know,
I feel a way.
My partner is white. And so is my baby's light skin. I don't know if I can make a contribution to that. You know?
Yeah, but the mother of your first child is a black woman.
Yeah, but that don't say prunes. That not gonna help you how you feeling. That's not gonna change anything.
It's not that I just get instantly angry because a man is with a white woman because he could have found love. And so that's not the issue. It's the men that do what they also did. Cheers to more light-skinned kids. There is more going on there than somebody finding love with a white woman. And that's the part. It's that underlying they are better than you conversation that irks me.
It's what irks you is the possibility that that form of brainwash is actually the brainwash that's in play. Why those two people are together. They are together because they are actually brainwashed by a colonial mindset that says that whiteness is better. But But what I really what I what I
But.
what I really want to say is that in some cases that is actually true.
Yeah.
In some cases that is actually hitting the nail on the head, that there is a certain amount of self-loathing that causes black people to want to be with white people, and or not just black people to want to be with white people, but also for darker skinned black people to want to be with lighter skinned black people as a process of lightening the race.
Yeah. It also flows the other way. I would say that the majority of my boyfriends have been darker skin.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel, I don't know if there's a subconscious, connection between wanting to make sure my children are darker. I don't know. I wouldn't, because I didn't really actually want children, but I love the ones that I have. I wasn't thinking about it that way. And I have a light-skinned child who looks mixed, and I have a darker-skinned child who, when the smaller one was born, when he turned about 1 or 2, he said, well, he's going to have a good life. And I said, why do you think that? And he said, because he's light-skinned and he has soft hair. And that was when he was like 10, 12.
Yeah. So there's a reality that whether we choose to speak about it or not, there is something else that's going on that is actually happening amongst us as humans, also more particularly as black people, where there is an undercurrent that is causing us to make choices that could quite possibly lead to like us deliberately like trying to lighten ourselves so that we would have an easier social experience.
An easier social experience. It's kind of like when a parent wishes their child wasn't gay. It sounds like, it's just easier if you're straight. It's easier if you're light. That makes me sad. Well, and in regards to this light skin being better and what opportunities they have, let's take a look at what Beyonce's father had to say in regards to his daughter's success and the success of women in the industry.
Just the reality.
From a colorism perspective, show me at pop radio the number of black women that were of high complexion and the number of black women that were of dark complexion that got airplay. Black women that have been successful with airplay were all of light complexion.
Now, I wanted to detail about this whole thing called The Music Industry Exposed for Blatant Colorism. If you want to check that video out, I would suggest watching it. But Matthew.
Yeah. So this is the tale of the tape here. The man who is the manager or was the manager of one of the most popular black artists ever, basically, named Beyonce, is calling it as he sees it. Is that most successful artists, if not all, especially who are women, are actually light-skinned black women.
Yeah, but dark-skinned men are able to be, are accepted in that realm for some reason, I find.
Personally, I think that they're in the minority.
Yeah?
How
did somebody like Seal get so popular?
I think there was an era
Yeah.
when it was okay to be dark-skinned, but you still had to have like specific features. The era of Tyson Beckford, the era of Seal, the era of Wesley Snipes. It was definitely a period in time when black men started to get noticed.
Darker men?
Yeah, darker men started to get noticed. But before that, you had to look like
Al B. Shore.
or you had to look
DeBarge.
like this other dude who was even like
Peoples?
I can't remember his name, but he used to be the Video Soul. Remember Video Soul? Donnie Simpson. You had to look like Donnie Simpson.
I don't
BT
even
had
know
this
who
had this
Donnie
countdown show.
Simpson is.
But anyway, that's just
Are
my
you talking
memory.
about the Soul Train?
No.
Because I'm like, that's not his name.
BT had a show, like a countdown. It
Yeah.
was very popular.
And a
Donnie
light-skinned
Simpson,
guy.
he was a light-skinned guy with hazel eyes. There was definitely a period of time, and it was a huge period of time when black men had to like soften their hair, put relaxer in their hair,
Oh,
make their
yeah.
hair curly. Like and try to, you had like Cab Calloway and stuff like that. Like you had to have, you could be black, yes, you could be black, but you still had to do something to make yourself look softer. And colorism is based in all of these things. And the impact of that on black society is far reaching. And what we do, we can't just pretend that we're over it.
I as soon as we start talking about it, I feel it in my body. So I can't pretend like I'm over it. I'm feeling something, and most of it, the outcome of those feelings are I can't do anything about it.
Okay. Well, I don't think that you can't do anything about it. I think that we're doing something about it right now in the elephant room. You know, we're calling it out, and we're not only just calling it out as something outside of our bodies, as something that's taking place in the world. We're also calling it out within our relationship with each other, within our relationship within our families, within our lives, and saying that this is something that we experience as well, and this is something that we are impacted by as well. And what I would like to do is to try and take away some of the shame that is associated with having these colonized thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Because we live in a world that is colonized. And that's why we have colonized thoughts.
Which is exactly why when we saw what was happening with Haley Bailey, who is starring, she's set to star as Ariel,
the
Little Mermaid,
Mm-hmm.
it caused such an outroar, an outrage. Like people were just like falling. I hadn't seen that in a while. These people were very upset. Now imagine if she was darker skinned. They would really lose themselves. Not to say that the internet hasn't failed by putting out some of the most racist memes that I've seen in a while, like Ariel in blackface and things like that. I didn't even know Ariel in the original Little Mermaid was Danish, and that's why people are upset. The fictional character is Danish. Not that I even know what Danish.
So she's from the Danish part of the ocean.
Yeah, wherever that is, or whatever country that is. You know the country?
Yes. Danes are from Daneland. No.
Daneland. So
I feel so I'm so bad.
No, but I feel stupid too. Look, I mean, she's
Danes are from. They're from Holland, right?
I don't know, but they look like the Little Mermaid on the screen with the red hair. So to have, and then some people were saying things like, you know, when if
are they from Great Dania?
No, but they were saying things like, if you know that movie The Princess and the Frog, where we have our first black princess, Tiana, if we did a live remake of The Princess and the Frog and they casted Tiana as a white woman, then everybody would lose their stuff.
Yeah, but that's a non sequitur. Like that is a very poor comparison. That's like comparing apples and oranges.
And more importantly, you know, the princess in The Princess and the Frog was actually a woman that could be alive and real, whereas the other the other mermaid went to her evil stepmother or whatever it is to get legs so that she could live happily ever after. But somebody else was also telling me that chances are the prince in that movie is going to be white. Because does anyone else think that there's a lot of black women being pushed towards thinking about her white prince? I don't know. It's fascinating.
Well, you know, the reality is that we just have to accept, before we can move on to make changes and decolonize our mind, the first thing that we have to realize is that the world that is being projected at us is telling us that we're not beautiful if we're not close to whiteness. This is a world that is putting whiteness as the benchmark for acceptability and has been doing that for more than 400 years now. Yeah. So in order for us to be woke, the first thing that we have to do is realize that being woke is not the end of the road. It's actually the beginning. It's where you start to become awakened and start to realize, oh, this is what's really taking place. What are the changes that I can make in my life to counteract that?
And you see, you told me you couldn't make me feel better.
Okay.
Sheldon always makes me feel better.
I
because,
try.
yeah, he could have a white girlfriend, he's still making me feel better. It's okay. So what I want to do is, it's the end of our show, unfortunately. This went so fast, and I feel like we've touched on the topics on the surface, and we need to start teasing some of this stuff apart so to really get the goal of the elephant room, which is to eventually get to a place of empathy and love. And maybe we have touched on that But
Empathy, love, and shared humanity.
yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. And so we're going to end the show going to a video that kind of summarizes what today's show is all about. But before we go, where can they reach you?
Oh yeah, I have it written down here.
Okay, I'll go first. I can be reached on Twitter at LAWade6. I can be reached on Instagram. I have a new Instagram. So my new Instagram is Cocktails with LA. It's another show that I will be putting out there in regards to, like sexual addiction, sexual education, dating, life after divorce, relationships. And these are stories that are going to be told, and I look forward to sharing them with you. And then we can be found on the Elephant Room TV on Instagram as well.
Oh, and you can find me at Sheldon Holder TO on Twitter, and you can find me at Saga Warrior on Instagram. That's SAGAWARRIOR. And also, I'm going to be doing a new show about interracial dating. No, I'm just joking. I'm not going to do it. But it
We're
would,
gonna
it
have
would be
that
interesting
show.
to talk about. We're going to have that show.
We're
going
gonna
to talk
have
about
that show for
what
sure.
that's like. And yeah.
Yes, so thanks for watching, and take a look at our summary.
But acknowledging that they experience light-skin privilege doesn't negate those struggles. But don't worry, I have great news. Well, maybe not great news, but helpful. There are some things that all people of color can do to combat colorism within their communities and in pop culture as a whole. This includes catching yourself from using language like pretty for a dark-skinned girl, engaging in open and honest conversations about how colorism affects your daily life, and if you're light-skinned, acknowledging your privilege. Because at the end of the day, it shouldn't be team light-skin versus team dark-skin. It should be team melanated people of all sizes, shapes, and shades versus society's dumb bull. And look, we all have biases. To learn more and to challenge your own, check out lookdifferent.org. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time right here on Decoded.